Hey everyone. Have you ever found yourself confused when speaking English with a native speaker? You might think of simple questions like, "How are you?" But have you ever wondered if you're using it the right way?
Yeah, I know what you mean. We all use certain phrases all the time without thinking about it. But when you hear them in a conversation with someone else, you might start wondering, am I saying this right?
Exactly. So today, we're going to dive into some of the most common English phrases used in daily conversations to help you speak more naturally and confidently.
Right? We'll give you real examples of how these phrases are used, and trust me, once you start using them, your English will sound so much more fluent.
All right, today's episode is all about everyday English phrases. We'll go through some of the phrases you hear all the time, and we'll show you how to use them properly in conversations.
Exactly, whether you're ordering coffee, meeting someone new, or just chatting with a friend, these phrases will make you sound more natural and help you connect with others easily.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'll be walking you through some of the most common and useful phrases that'll make you sound like a native speaker in no time.
And I'm Alex. I'm excited to help you understand the little things that make your English sound smoother and more relaxed.
So, Alex, let's kick things off. When you meet someone new, what's a casual way to say hello?
Well, in English, there are lots of ways to greet people casually. For example, you can say hey or what's up, depending on how relaxed you want to be.
Right. And those are both super casual and friendly. In fact, what's up is one of those phrases we use all the time. But it doesn't actually mean you're asking for someone's problems or news. It's just like saying hi.
Exactly. And if you want to sound even more casual, you could say something like hey there or yo when you're talking to a friend.
Definitely now. Let's talk about how to ask someone how they're doing. So, we all know the question, how are you? But there are actually several ways to ask about someone's well being in a more casual way.
Yeah, for sure. You can ask, how's it going? Or how's everything? These are super common and sound really natural in conversation.
And when someone asks you that, you don't always have to say, I'm fine, thank you. You can mix it up. For example, I'm doing great, thanks, or not bad.
Right. And if you want to go a little deeper, you could say, I'm doing well. How about you?
Exactly. These are small changes that make your English sound more fluid and less robotic. Now, let's talk about how to end a conversation. It's something we all do, but we don't always think about how to do it the right way.
Yeah, one way to wrap things up could be, it was great catching up with you, or I'm glad we talked.
And if you're in a hurry, you could say, I've got to run, but let's talk soon. It's short and casual, but it's still polite.
Exactly. And if you want to sound extra friendly, you could say, take care or have a good one.
So, Alex, when you meet someone for the first time, what's a casual way to say hello?
Well, in English, we have a lot of ways to greet people depending on how formal or informal the situation is. For instance, you can say, hey there, or what's up when you're meeting a friend or someone you're close with.
Yes, those are definitely casual greetings. But what's the difference between hey there and what's up?
Good question, hey there, is friendly, but it's slightly more neutral. You can use it with almost anyone, but it still feels informal. It's great for when you meet someone you know, but maybe not as close. On the other hand, what's up is a very laid-back greeting, often used with friends or people you see regularly. It's like asking, how are you, but in a more casual way. Sometimes, it's just a way to say hello without really expecting a detailed answer.
Exactly. And if you want to get even more casual, you could try something like yo or hey. Those are the kinds of greetings that are very informal and typically used between friends or in very relaxed settings.
Right? And if you want to take it a step further, when you meet someone for the first time, you might say, nice to meet you, or it's a pleasure to meet you. These are more polite and formal greetings that you'd use with someone you're just getting to know, like in a business setting or with someone you respect.
Yes, those formal greetings are perfect for professional settings. But remember, you can also use nice to meet you in informal settings too. It's just the tone and context that make the difference. Now, let's talk about one of the most common phrases you'll hear in everyday conversations. How are you? This is something we say all the time, but we don't always mean it literally, right?
Exactly how are you is really just a greeting, not always a genuine question about someone's well-being. It's more about acknowledging someone and opening up the conversation. When you answer, you don't have to give a long response.
So true, you could just say, I'm good, thanks, or not bad, even if you're not feeling great. It's all about keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, and if you want to sound a little more natural, you can say, I'm doing well. How about you? Or simply, I'm good. How about you? It's a way to keep things casual, while also politely asking the other person how they're doing.
Exactly. And you can change it up a little depending on how well you know the person. If you're really close, you might say, how's everything? Or how's life treating you? These are a bit more personal, and it's a nice way to show you care a little more about how they're really doing.
Right. And don't forget, you can also ask, how's it going? Or how's your day been? Those are also informal ways of checking in and can make the conversation feel more natural.
Definitely, and for a more positive spin, you can use, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. If you're in a really good mood, it's all about the tone and the way you say it.
Exactly. The important thing is to stay relaxed and keep your responses simple and friendly. If you start giving long, complicated answers, it might make the conversation feel awkward.
Now, let's move on to another important part of everyday conversation, offering help or asking for help.
Yeah, when you're talking to someone and they need assistance, or vice versa, it's good to know the right phrases. For example, you can say, can I help you with that? Or do you need any help?
Those are perfect, and you can also say, is there anything I can do for you, if you want to offer your help in a more polite or formal way.
Exactly. If you're the one asking for help, you might say, could you help me out? Or would you mind helping me? These are both polite ways to ask someone to do something for you.
Yeah, and if you want to be even more polite, you can say, would it be all right if you... This is a very polite way of asking for help, and it shows respect for the other person's time.
Right. And if you're in a situation where you can't help, you could say something like, I'm sorry. I wish I could help, but I'm really tied up right now. That's a polite way to decline without sounding rude.
Exactly. It's all about being respectful and clear in your communication. So whether you're offering help or asking for it, just remember to be polite and considerate. Now, let's talk about how to give opinions and agree or disagree with someone. This is another key part of daily conversations.
Definitely. When you want to share your opinion, you can start with phrases like, I think, or in my opinion. For example, I think this movie is really good, or in my opinion, it's a great idea to visit that museum.
Those are great ways to express your thoughts. And if you want to agree with someone, you can use phrases like, I totally agree, or you're absolutely right.
Yeah, those are strong ways to show that you completely agree with what the other person is saying. But if you just agree in a more casual way, you can say, yeah, for sure, or that's true.
And if you disagree, you can say, I don't think so, or I see your point, but I disagree. It's important to be respectful when disagreeing, so the conversation stays friendly.
Exactly. And if you want to soften your disagreement, you can say, I'm not sure I agree with that, or I see it a bit differently.
Yes, those are great ways to keep the conversation respectful and avoid sounding too harsh. It's all about being kind while sharing your thoughts.
So, when someone says something you agree with, what's a good way to show you're on the same page?
When you really agree with someone, you can say things like, I totally agree, or that's so true. These phrases show strong agreement and are great when you feel really strongly about what the other person is saying.
Yeah, if you really believe in what they're saying, you can use I totally agree to emphasize your opinion. It's a clear, straightforward way to show your support.
Exactly. And if you want to keep it more casual, you could just say, yeah, for sure, or even just totally. These are much more laid back and are perfect for informal conversations with friends.
Right. Yeah, For sure, Shecht is one of those super casual responses that you can throw in when you're just agreeing without needing to get too serious about it. It's great for conversations where you don't need to explain much, and you just want to show that you agree.
And don't forget, "That's so true" is a really good one if you want to add a little extra emphasis. It's great when someone makes a point you strongly relate to, like when a friend says something like, "The weather has been so unpredictable lately." You could respond with, "That's so true," to show that you're really connecting with their experience.
Exactly. It's a way to keep the conversation flowing and show that you're actively listening and engaged in what the other person is saying.
All right, let's move on to making invitations and declining politely. Sometimes you want to ask someone to do something, but you also need to know how to decline politely when you can't join in.
Yeah. When you want to invite someone, a simple phrase like, "Do you want to grab coffee later?" works perfectly. It's informal but friendly, and it sounds natural in everyday conversation.
Exactly, "Do you want to grab coffee later?" is one of those go-to invitations you can use when you want to hang out with a friend. It's casual and makes it easy for the other person to say yes or suggest another time.
And if they say yes, you're good to go, but if you can't make it, you need to know how to decline politely.
Right, if you can't join them, you could say something like, "I'd love to, but I've got other plans." It's a kind way of saying no, while also showing that you would have liked to join if you could.
Exactly. And if you need to decline but want to offer an alternative, you could say something like, "I can't today, but how about we do it next week?" This keeps the invitation open for future plans.
That's a great one. And for a more casual, less formal approach, you could just say, "Sorry, I'm tied up today," or "I can't today, but let's plan something soon." That way, you don't leave the conversation on a negative note.
Yeah, and it's always important to be polite and friendly when declining. No one wants to feel like you're brushing them off, so keeping it positive is key.
Exactly. The main thing is to stay respectful and give them an idea of when you might be free. That way, they'll know you still value the invitation, even if you can't make it this time.
So, let's say we're done talking. What's a good way to end the conversation?
Well, when you're wrapping things up, a great way to end a conversation is by saying, "It was great catching up with you." It's friendly and shows you enjoyed the conversation.
That's true. It's a nice way to let the other person know you appreciated their time. You could also just say, "Take care," which is casual and polite.
Yes, exactly. And for a more informal ending, you could say, "Catch you later," or "See you soon" if you plan to meet again.
And if you're in a hurry, you could quickly say, "I've got to go, but talk to you later." It's a polite way to end without feeling like you're rushing off too abruptly.
Definitely. Or if it's a professional setting, you could say, "It was a pleasure speaking with you," or "Looking forward to our next conversation." It's polite and leaves a positive impression.
Yeah, these little phrases help keep the conversation friendly and leave the door open for future chats.
All right, let's quickly review what we've learned today. We covered a lot of important phrases to use in daily conversations.
Yes, we talked about casual greetings like, "Hey there," and "What's up?" How to ask about someone's well-being with phrases like, "How are you?" and "How's it going?" And how to express agreement with phrases like, "I totally agree," and "That's so true."
We also discussed how to invite someone in a friendly way, like saying, "Do you want to grab coffee later?" and how to politely decline if you can't make it. And, of course, we learned how to wrap up a conversation with phrases like "take care" or "see you soon."
Exactly. Remember, the key is to practice these phrases regularly. The more you use them, the more natural you'll sound when you speak English.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way. Mistakes are part of the learning process, and that's how you get better. If you liked today's podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fun lessons. And if you have any questions about English phrases, feel free to leave a comment below.
We'd love to hear what phrases you use in your daily conversations too. So, drop them in the comments. See you next time, and keep practicing your English.
Take care, and happy learning.